Hello there. This might be the most critical video you would watch about this tax reform. So, in this video, I'm going to attempt to walk you through the tax brackets and how to actually get the estimate of how much you are supposed to pay as your tax. But before we talk about the tax bracket, I want to explain the difference between the PAYE and then the personal income tax, because some people seem to mix them up. For people who work in certain organizations and are paid salaries, their tax in form of PAYE, which is pay as you earn, is usually deducted and remitted by the company. So the deductions for tax and other payments are already done before they are take home. But for people who are freelancers and within some organizations, they expect that the employees themselves will go ahead into the system, calculate their income, estimate their tax, and do their remittances. So now that you know this, let's talk about the tax brackets.
The first thing I want to say is there's a difference between tax brackets and income bounds, and I would explain that in a moment. But let's talk about tax brackets first. Number one thing to take note of is the first 800,000 naira that you earn is non-tax. That means it is taxed 0%, which means you pay nothing on the first 800. But the next 2.2 million that you earn after that is taxed at 15%. Now, this does not mean that if you earn 2.2 million, this means the 2.2 million that you earn after the first 800 is then taxed at 15%. And then after that 2.2 million, the next 9 million that you earn is taxed at 18%. Which means that after you've earned 3 million, that's 800 plus 2.2. After you've earned that 3 million, the next 9 million that you earn is taxed at 18%. And then it continues like that. The next 13 million at 21%, the next 25 million at 23%, and then the next 50 million at 25%. Now, I'm going to walk you through an example of how this relates to actual figures. But before we go into that example, I'm going to talk about certain reliefs that you can deduct before even applying your tax. The first one is the pension, which is usually 8% of your annual income. And then the second is your rent relief, which is 20% of your annual rent, but is capped at 500,000. That means if your rent is beyond 2.5 million, you cannot go beyond 500,000 naira relief or deduction as part of the relief that you get from your rent. The next is NHIS, and after that we have the National Housing Fund, and then life insurance premium if you pay life insurance premium. Now let's go into a typical example of what this looks like. In my previous video, I referenced this personal income tax calculator, which you can get on the fiscalreforms.ng website. I'd also reshare the URL. Now when you come down here, you're supposed to enter your annual gross income. Let's assume your monthly salary is 150,000 naira. Multiply that by 12, which gives you 1.8 million for the whole year, for the 12 months. So you come into your annual and then you write 1.8 million. And then you come down under housing fund. If you have anything here, you write it. If you have pension contributions, you write that. If you have life insurance, you fill it here. If you have NHIS, for instance, that's usually 66,000 for individuals. You write that here. If there's a loan that you're paying on occupied house, you write that. And then if there's annual rent, you also fill that in. So let's say, for instance, you pay 600,000, right, for your annual rent. Now what's going to happen is you just click on calculate PAYE tax comparison. And then here you will see that breakdown. You see what I was saying earlier. So the tax is actually applied after you've done your deductions, which means that before they even start to apply any tax, we say, oh, do you have NHF that you're paying the housing fund? Do you have NHIS contribution, which is 66,000? So that whole 66,000 will be deducted from your annual gross income. And then you come to annual rent, and then once you enter that, 20%, like I mentioned earlier, will be deducted. And 20% of 600,000 is 120. 120,000 plus 66,000 would give you 186. Deduct 186 from 1.8 million, and it will give you 1,614,000. 1,614,000 that you now have as the taxable income now comes into this point, and then the first 800, that means 800 will be deducted from this, which is non-taxable, and the tax due for that amount is 0. And then the remaining amount, think of it like balance brought forward that we were taught in secondary school, and then the remaining amount is brought down here. And then the same thing happens. You now apply 15% on this, and this is the amount that you are due to pay. If this, for instance, were an amount that surpassed this 3 million, so let's say we come back here, maybe we say you are earning 1 million per month, which means at the end of the year you'll be earning 12 million. If we calculate and you come to this point, you would notice that because the amount that is there after 2.2 is removed, you also still have remaining. It is brought forward here. But let's go back to our example of 1.8 million. A critical clarification that I need to make at this point is that you are earning above 800 doesn't mean you're going to pay 15% of your total earning, because there's something called effective tax rate. Even though you have some funds that crosses into the second bracket, if you think of it, at this point your effective tax rate is actually 7% of your total income.
I hope that makes sense to us. And if you would prefer for me to do a more manual calculation of the tax, put it in the comments, and maybe I might just do a video showing the manual calculation of the tax. I hope this helps. Bye for now.